Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning into today's episode. If you do make it to near the end, Becky's got a little offer for you to join one of our Zoom online training sessions at a discounted price. So keep an eye out for the special word that she's going to use. And like I said, it'll be towards the end of the show. Okay, I'm going to finish making my coffee, so I won't be a minute.
Oh my God, you take forever. Okay, hang on. Uh, da, 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 da. I'll not sing because knowing me, you're recording this and you'll put this out. So I'm not going to sing. I'm not going to damage everyone's ears. I can't sing really.
What was that?
Nothing, nothing, nothing.
I'll just watch it back anyway.
Just letting everyone know that I'm a great singer. I was going to sing and then I thought, no.
I got a few videos. Are you pulling
Yeah.
faces whilst I'm not looking?
No, no,
You're
no.
such a liar.
I was not.
Okay, so one of the videos, because I asked people to send me a video of any question that you've got, industry related, training specific, anything that they had in mind that they thought was thought provoking, they'd either received themselves or perhaps asked in, whilst they've been an instructor.
Mhm.
And one of the ones I got was from Chris Benstead, and I'll play the clip on the video.
Hi, Chris Benstead from Theory Test Explained. As a trainer myself, I am very aware of the huge amounts of training that are available to ADIs and PDIs. It is a brilliant time to start bettering yourself, but people are drowned in the amount of opportunity out there. So how do they find the right trainer and the right course for them? What would you look for, and how would you differentiate between different trainers? We're all different, so how do people know what is right for them, both the right trainer and the right training?
There's a little bit to unpack
Ooh,
there, isn't there?
it's a good one. I love that. I love Chris Benstead. That was a good one.
So the first thing he said was, how did you pick the right trainer? How did you pick yours?
Which one? I had loads.
Do what Becky does, try them all.
Try them all, yeah, just try them all. Well,
What
I
you
think,
like with a tub of celebrations?
well, I am a bounty girl for a tub of
Oh my
celebrations. I
goodness
I am
me.
repping the bounty. That's why I wore this. It's blue and white. I'm getting ready for Christmas. Yeah,
So
bounty.
we could actually share a tub of celebrations and the whole box could be consumed because they're kind of the only ones that I leave in the box.
I don't get what people have an issue with bounties for. I don't
Because
understand.
have you seen what other chocolates are available on the shelf?
There's so many of them that I can't eat because I'm celiac. So there's loads that are gluten that would poison me. So Bounty, I'm sticking with Bounty. I'm repping that. Go on, what's your favorite?
What
Sorry,
chocolate?
Chris, we'll get to your question in a minute. We've got some more
I think
important
I,
things.
I, I think the chocolate's a great foundation because if we're picking bounties, then there may be a reason why you went through four trainers.
But no, no, don't compare a Bounty to trainers. Bounties are elite. Go
Okay.
on, what would you pick? What's your favorite?
I go through phases because I really enjoy chocolate. I mean, to the point where
You do.
there's
Your face then. Wow, you do.
yeah, I've been known to do maybe I'm not exaggerating when I say a midnight run for I need some chocolate. I don't have any. I've got better as I've got older. I kind of have a bit of a supply now. Um, but yeah,
There's
at the
nothing wrong with
moment,
that.
say again.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No, it's kind of my little thing, my pick me up. But at the moment, it's twirl. But it just
Whoa.
just just cut yeah, a twirl. I've just come off of enjoying double deckers. So yeah, but I stay on something until I'm so sick of it that I go on something else. But I can
And are
never.
you like that? Are you like that with your training providers? Do you stick with one until you think I can't listen to her anymore, and then you go to the next one?
Well, it's a good job you're not a double decker, isn't it? Because
Ah, yeah.
so yeah, I guess I stick to maybe there's a link there. But if I'm enjoying something, to kind of stick to it, yeah. But I mean, yeah. So, all right, you've been through a few different trainers. Why?
When I started as a PDI, I was first. I didn't know how much choice there was. I was given a tub of celebrations and there was just a Malteser in it, and that's it. So that was my only choice. And then eventually the 12 came into it and the other one started creeping in. And then I started exploring a little bit. And I do think you've got to try a bit of all of them to find your bounty, to find your favorite. But you've got to, I think you've got to try a little bit of everyone, everything, every chocolate. You've got to try a little bit of them all to see who you vibe with. And you've also, I think there's this idea that if a trainer picks you, then that's the one that you've got and you're kind of stuck with them a little bit. And actually, it would be good if we knew that we're the ones interviewing trainers. We're the ones that we're paying for a service. We need to kind
But
of.
you can say that now because you're a trainer. But back on, if you
I
look
would
if you look
expect
back to
people to. I would expect people to interview me and say, Becky, what can you do for me?
but that's because you're sat in the position you are now, right? Where you perhaps have that. But if you go back to the when you were first looking into this industry, were you interviewing people, or were you looking for somebody to go, I can get you through this?
Yeah, absolutely. You're told go with this person or go with that person, or you find the first name or the first voice or the first one that's got availability. It wasn't so bad in 2018 when I first started. Now you can't, there's not many with availability. So it
So
wasn't
where did
so
you find
bad.
that?
Huh?
Where did you find that? What was it? Google search, top first couple of people come up?
A recommendation from
Really?
someone. Yeah.
What? So was you looking to come into the industry, and somebody got wind of that, and they were like, "Oh, I know so and so that does training or is an instructor."
No, I'd actually wanted to be in the industry for many, many years before I actually did get in the industry. And due to one thing or another, it didn't, I didn't continue with it. And then when I did start with the industry, the school I was with, they were the ones that provided the training. And then there were some other people that were recommended within that circle that provided it. And when you're a baby PDI, I call it a baby PDI, when you're brand new, you go with who you're told to go with, I think.
But you sound like was it Facebook you were involved in? Where was your circle?
Local, it was just a local area school. It wasn't looking on Google and going through the big schools or anything like that. It was just like a local one.
Or did you go to them and say, "I'm interested in becoming an instructor"?
Yeah, yeah. And it just kind of went from there. And I think sometimes you're told do this, do that, do this, and you'll pass and it'll all be gravy. And it wasn't all gravy. And I had my first fail for part 3. We'll go straight to part 3, we'll forget the others. And I then started to go, okay, well, what other opinion can I get? Where else can I go? Kind of thing.
But what's the difference between choosing somebody as your hairdresser to being your instructor trainer? Do you when you go and get your hair done, is it a case of, and I know nothing about hair clearly, but
Sorry, that made me laugh. Could
that's
you
all
a
right.
dead pan face on that? Yeah.
Yeah, it's coming from somebody that really enjoys bounties. So that's all I've got tonight on you.
Yeah.
So do you go through few different hairdressers? You think, oh well, that cut wasn't that great. Didn't really like the style. Didn't really like the chat. And then go and try somebody else. But how do you make that initial? I'm going to try that first. Is there a link to that sort of thing? Is it similar?
I think so. I think there's always someone will go, let's take my nail lady. Okay. So my nail lady now, I used to go somewhere else for my nails and I didn't like it was all right, but I weren't 100% happy. And then someone said, "Oh, come with me to this place." And now she's brilliant. I'll never go anywhere else. But she was recommended to me. I went along. It's perfect. I think there's an element in no matter what service you're paying for, whether it's your nails, your hair, your opticians, your training, whatever it
Were
is.
you just picking features of me to say them?
Literally just looking at you thinking, what's going to come to my head? I think there's an element of someone said this, someone recommended them, someone name tagged them, someone mentioned them. I've seen their name, I've seen reviews, I've seen stuff. I think there is an element of that, but surely that's with anything.
Maybe
Um,
I'm naive to that fact because more recently I'm started personally being approached by people requiring rescue training, and that's probably a conversation separate to this. But my journey, if you're interested, was slightly different. So I knew of no schools really locally until I searched for it, and there was quite a large one on my doorstep that was well known as well. But I guess because I didn't grow up in the area, I'd moved to the area. I guess it wouldn't have been names I would have heard of. When I was,
yeah.
I grew up in Chelmsford, so a big school at the time was Benson. So I was interested. I'd thought about it for some time and done some online research, but I'm not massive on social media until recently. So Facebook and things like that wasn't really my go-to for it. It was more of typing in on the Google or something like this and seeing what's available. And of course, the big schools did come up for me.
Yeah.
And I put myself in front of them and I wanted to hear. I'd already done the research, so I'd been on the government website, I'd really digested what they were saying, what they advised to do, who to speak to, although never really came across audit, if I'm completely honest. Then from there, I put myself in front of these people and I wanted to listen to them, and I had meetings with them.
So you interviewed them
Yeah.
in a sense. Yeah.
No, I absolutely did, because
Yeah.
I was, I've worked on large contracts in my previous work. So I wanted to know what they were offering, and a couple of them felt like that they were big promises, and I thought, wow, I'm going to get my money back, and I can only pay X amount. And I didn't like that. I almost I want to pay what it's worth.
Yeah.
I don't want any favors. I don't want any frills and contracts for this long, and you'll get it back over this. Let me just pay what it costs and be done with it. And if I need a bit more, then fine.
How did you know what to ask when you went for these things? Like you say, you didn't really know much. You'd Googled a little bit. How did you know what to ask as you were interviewing these schools and these trainers and having these meetings? What kind of stuff were you looking for to get out of those meetings?
I was looking to see through the crap.
Fair enough. Good answer.
Being over the phone is much more difficult for me, and I've always felt like I've been quite good at reading body language, and I felt that if I've got somebody in front of me, I can tell and look into that person's eyes and know if I'm being strung a load of rubbish or not. And maybe they weren't, but I had to believe that myself. I had to feel that if I felt that this was too good to be true, then that's what I'm going to go with. There was a couple of large schools that I felt quite comfortable with, that actually I didn't feel that was happening. I felt what they were saying was true, and I liked them. But from there, I waited for all of their sort of paperwork to arrive on my front door, because I also wanted it in writing. I wanted what you've promised me in black and white. There was a couple that it never materialized or was completely different to what was said in front of me, and there was a couple that actually rang true. And I wasn't looking for something quick. I was very much in a choosing stage. I wasn't in a rush. And as time went on, I sort of discussed it with the people around me. And it just so happened that I went to my father-in-law's, and there was a driving instructor pull up and sort of walk away. And I thought, do you know what? It probably wouldn't hurt just to ask somebody that's gone through this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I went and had a chat, and he said to me, I don't do the training myself, and I don't want to sort of advise wrongly, because what, he said to me, what might be good for me might not be good for you. And I guess at the time I didn't really I thought I understood what you meant by that, but didn't really. He said, why don't you go and pop to one of the local schools? And he recommended a couple. And I rang a few and I went and put myself in front of them. And it was a
Did you
lot.
find a difference between the big ones, what they were telling you, and the smaller ones and what they were telling you?
Yeah. Yeah. So there was less shiny bits.
Hmm.
It seemed more personable, and I'm somebody that craves camaraderie, that enjoys being around a team,
Yeah.
and it gave me that feel of, oh, there's a little office around the corner, and when I popped in, there was a few instructors in there, all having a coffee and a laugh and a joke, and it was nice.
Oh. Were
Yeah,
they eating bounties out of a box of celebrations?
they might have been, mate, but it was nice, and it was a lot cheaper. I could pay as you go. Not that that was a huge deal breaker for me, but I didn't feel like it was going to break the bank to do this.
But that's what you were looking for. You were looking for that camaraderie, that local, just office round the corner, nip in and say hello. There's people that might be looking for, I want the quickest way to do this. I want the cheapest way to do this.
Well,
So
that's
no
happening a
matter,
lot more, isn't it?
it is, but I guess no matter what you're looking for, doing what you've said, go and interview them, go and chat to them, go and speak to
Yeah.
them, find out what it is that you want as well. I think sometimes from conversations I've had with people, becoming a driving instructor, I think some people think it's just dead easy, you just become a driving instructor. And there's so much more to it. And it isn't, as like you've just said, there's not loads of shiny bits. There is, of course there is, but the qualifying process can be bloody hard. And it's
So,
not always transparent enough, is
no,
it?
you're absolutely right, because I didn't go into any of those meetings. Really, I was learning as I was going, but even up to the
Mm.
point that I made a decision with the local company that I went with, it wasn't until I was doing it that I really learned what the process was. And
Mm.
actually, I'm never one shy for training, and I definitely overtrained. I mean, I look through my notes now, and I as I was training, I wrote pretty much a training aid in the form
Yeah.
of notes that I could sell if I actually wanted to.
Mm.
And I was so invested in my training, but it wasn't until I was doing it that I realized, wow, I've got to put some work in here.
Mm.
It was at a time when the Part 3 testing was swapping over as well, so I kind of had to learn two ways. So that was intense. But so if and I like to think of myself as somebody that does a lot of research on things before I make a decision.
Yeah. I'm the same, I think.
Yeah, and I think about things. I read a lot of negative reviews online about becoming a driving instructor, but I'd very quickly told myself, well, I think it's easier and it's more likely that people write negative things. Certainly back then,
Oh, of
anyway, there's a culture
course,
for it.
yeah.
Then and nobody writing good things, because you get good testimonials for learner drivers passing tests, but there isn't too much, or wasn't too much, of reviews in terms of instructor training. And I thought to myself, you know what? There's a reason for this, so I'm just going to go and speak to people. And that was what my decision was. But yeah, as I was going, I was learning. And so I sort of think to myself, when I'm now on the other side of that fence, that it's very easy to get lost in what's required. And I have certainly put people off when they've come to me and they're interested in training. And I know I've put people off because
Mm.
I don't tell them it's easy. I tell them the facts, and I tell them the pass rate, and I tell them
Absolutely.
why I think the pass rate is that way. And that you're going to have to work hard at this to be half decent. But I tell
Yeah.
you what, I'll match whatever energy and time you put into this.
Yeah, that's true. That's good.
But like you just said a minute ago, didn't you, that some people want the quick and easy, the cheapest. And I
Mm.
and I use a little bit of a cliche. If you want it cheap, it ain't going to be good and it ain't going to be
Yeah.
fast.
Well, I know that. I had some trainers that were cheap and it took me 4 attempts to pass part three. So yeah, you have to do your due diligence and look around, find your bounty, find the one that works for you, the one that you vibe with. I'm sticking with bounty.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, until you find it. And you might have to pay a little bit more than what you're thinking, depending on what your expectations are. But if you, it's that saying, isn't it? Is it pay cheap, pay twice? Have I said it right? No.
Well, depends what context you're looking at. Is what does cheap mean? You know, because if you've got buckets and bundles of money, maybe you had a redundancy or an inheritance or a sale of a house or something like this, then a couple of grand isn't a huge amount of money, is it? Really?
Hi everyone. So if you send me a text message with the word turtle in it, either on Facebook or WhatsApp me, my number is on my empathetic instructor training page. If you send me a message with the word turtle on it, you can receive £5 off any Zoom workshop that I put on. Well, yeah, that's subjective then, isn't it, to the person paying it?
Absolutely.
We're not going to get into the people's backgrounds of PDIs coming into the industry, of where they're from and how they've got their money to pay for it.
No, but my point being is, if they've got the money sat there, then it can be less pressure, can't it, than the people that don't have the money. But I guess my point is if somebody's looking at it more from a business perspective, that can also change your mindset as well, because what's your return? What are you looking at returning? If I'm only paying £1,000 for this training, well, and then I'm going to have to pay loads more on my trainee license. Then I might need a bit more of this, and I might need a bit more of that. Add it all up, and people go, "Oh, it's quite a lot of money."
Mm.
But what are you getting back in the long run? What are you going to be earning? And I don't think that's investigated enough either. The return on it outweighs the outlay. But I get that if you don't have the money to outlay to begin with, then it's a hard entry. But certainly from my perspective, when I'm talking to potential clients, potential trainees, that I make sure the conversation is that money shouldn't be a barrier to entry if you actually want this. And I work really hard with them to make sure that there's no financial constraints for them to get into the industry. And that's my way of supporting them as well. And we make things work. But, how much does a learner pay to learn to drive? On average, and of course it depends on location and what transmission they're learning to drive, and the person, the school, and it's probably fair to say around about £1,600.
Yeah.
Now, if you're not paying double that, then I'd be concerned.
Do you reckon?
Yeah. Yeah.
Very serious face.
But it is quite serious, because it baffles me that people think that they can train somebody to drive for £1,000. I don't get that. I don't understand that.
I think it's probably not acknowledged, maybe, of what a trainer's done to get to be a trainer, the investment and the financial cost they've done to be able to get to be a trainer, maybe. But when I was a PDI, I didn't think about any of that. I wanted to pass and I wanted my training, and that was it. I didn't really think of the bigger picture or anything like that. And I guess it depends on, as we've said, it depends on what your motivation is. Are you wanting to do it quick? Are you wanting to do it cheap? Are you wanting to put all your bloody effort in and go for it and invest yourself properly? It depends, doesn't it? But I guess going back to Chris's original question, like, with all the fantastic services that are available in our industry, how do you pick? You just have to find who you vibe with. I think you've got to try a few out to see who you like. And do you know as well, sometimes there's nothing wrong with taking influence from a few people as well. And you start to hear as well that a few of them it sounds similar as well, because they're off the same page, because everyone's got their own unique style of delivering stuff. Of course we have, no matter what. No driving instructors the same, no drivers the same, no trainers the same. It's the same concept. But you won't know unless you try a little bit of each and then find your bounty.
Absolutely. And to bolt onto that is that I'm a firm believer in that I'm possibly not able to give everybody everything of their training. And you've probably heard me say that before. Is my expertise, knowledge, time
Mhm.
will run out at some point for somebody along the way. And they may have to, at recommendation from myself, grab that from somewhere else. And that could be in the form of a book from somebody, an audio book, a podcast, an online training session, a conference, any of those things.
Mm.
And I think possibly, I don't know, is there an element of ownership? So once you sit in front of somebody or you're recommended by somebody, there's almost this loyalty that, okay, now Becky's recommended this person to me. I've kind of just got to go with this person. And although you think Mr. ABC is amazing, the best thing since sliced bread, like you said, it might not be for them. And by the way, I'm not suggesting
Absolutely.
for a moment that you're saying that that's what happens, but I think
I'm a big fan of Mr. ABC.
yeah, you know, you have to be careful. And I think certainly when I give recommendations, I do caveat in that go and do it on your own merit. I'm
Yeah.
putting you in front of this person because I believe they're within the remit of what you need, and I know they've got the knowledge. However, the presentation, the delivery, that's for you to decide.
Yeah,
And,
completely.
and I think that is super important. Which is, we compare it to you and I. We work quite closely together. We deliver similarly, but there's some differences. Do you want the bounty or the twirl? And we know where most people are going to go, but
I am telling you, there are people watching or listening to this that like Bounty as well.
I will, if on the Spotify upload, I will add a poll to this podcast, and we'll get this sorted finally. But next
The
week I'll be
great
back
old,
onto my double decker.
the great old question, Bounty or Twirl? Yeah, that old one.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, let's go back to what Chris said. Is it's a minefield out there. There's no shop window. I say that all the time, don't I? The shop window. There's no shop window. It's the entry point is normally, I guess, a search, unless you've been fortunate that somebody who's an instructor, or they're a mum or dad down the school or something,
Yeah.
or they're perhaps a grandparent or somebody they know, that they're going to give that person their experience on their way of doing it, and that can quite quickly be, okay, that's the only way, that's the correct way to get into the industry. And then of course, they start down that journey. Some get into the Facebook and the social media stuff, and then there's various names that float about as recommendations. But of course, there's thousands out there that could be very, very good that aren't reachable.
Yeah, absolutely.
It
Everyone
feels
can bring their own thing.
absolutely, yeah.
Mm.
But it is scary, isn't it? That potentially I don't know if poor trainer or poor training is the right word, but maybe not the right training for the right person. And I've started to consider, is instructor training client-centered enough, as is the instructor to learner? And I wonder if the instructor training is, and I use this term lightly, old-fashioned, in that you've got to do it this way.
I think it can be, and I think that's a whole other conversation as well that we could have another day talking about instructor training and get people's points of view. I've got plenty from being a PDI and getting that training, and also being a trainer, and the type of things I hear and see. I think there's still a lot of old stuff kicking about. But then saying that, a lot of old stuff, it depends. I think a lot of stuff has got misconstrued along the way. And it's come down to you should fault ID, fault analysis, and remedial action, and it's very much we tell them what to do kind of thing. Don't think it was ever meant to be that. I think a lot of stuff got misconstrued, and I like the fact that now it's more personal, it is more client centered, it's more let's focus on the learner, let's focus on the instructor. What is it that you need? Why do we need that? Why do you
But
think that happened,
that's only
etc.
happening if you're reinvesting in yourself, and you're taking CPD, and you're picking up on the latest standards. And like I said, if you're out of that loop, potentially out of the social media loop, out of the CPD loop, then potentially that is still being delivered and handed down and upon trainer upon trainer. I was delivering instructor training session today, and he got really frustrated because I think something penny dropped for him, and he opened up his book and and he looked at it and he said, he just told me he wants it all professional and that I've got to have this book so it looks good to the examiner. And I just paused and I kind of let him just play out whatever was brewing and coming. He's like, all of this is just nonsense. It's rubbish. And I said, just explain what you mean by that. And he's pulled all these post-it notes out from his first part 3 that he did. He's like, well, all of this must have been rubbish. I said, actually, all of that stuff is really, really good. And we just looked at it, but it was from a different way. What he thought was meant by it was interpreted or perhaps delivered incorrectly, maybe the wrong word. But
just misconstrued along the way.
Yeah. And because, I wasn't here to slag another trainer. I don't know the person.
Yeah.
I never heard the name before in my life. And it isn't about saying that person's a bad trainer for me and that I'm better than this person.
No, it never is. It never is. It's about the person that you sat in front of.
Absolutely. And the point there was to make sure that, you don't need to unlearn anything. We just need a different perspective. That 9 you're looking at, walk around the table, that's now a 6, isn't it? But it's the same thing on the table.
I like the 9 and 6 thing. I like it.
Yeah, it's super simple to sort of paint a picture of perspective, isn't it? So, and I think if that isn't curbed by trainers when they're presented with trainees that have gone through that, it can create this culture of that person's not very good and this person is good. So it's a difficult one, isn't it? And all right, Chris's question: how do you? I think we only find this stuff out. From me, I only find this stuff out once it's already happened.
Yeah, I speak to a lot of PDIs that come to me that want a bit of advice because they're not happy with the training or X, Y, and Z. And it's such a shame, really, because again, I was there, so I can relate to it, that you don't know that it's bad training until you know it's bad training, if that makes sense. And it's a shame that you can't get to it first and just say, like you said at the beginning, there are some shiny bits, but there might be some muddy bits as well. You need to know both. You need to be able to make an informed decision before you sign a dotted line anywhere. Yeah.
Do you think that training instructors feel empowered enough to be able to say this isn't working for me?
No. I
agree. I think it's worse for them than it is for learner drivers. I'd probably say my learner drivers feel more empowered, in control of the learning, feel more able to challenge me because I promote that and have an idea than in training instructors. Maybe there's more resting on this. Maybe there's more on the line, people's livelihoods. I don't know. But having that conversation, saying if you're not happy, the great one for me is I hated role play. I hated the role play that I had previously. I really don't like role play. When I used to do it in this place, I really, really hated it. And I say challenge accepted. Let me see if I can do it differently. And I involve them. So I think there's a lot of onus, but back to Chris's question, on who they meet, what school, what trainer. And yeah, like you say, you might go through a few bounties before you get to a 12. But do what you need.
I think just going back to your point about PDIs not feeling very empowered, I think there's a lot of factors in that as well at the minute why that's the case. I think test times aren't a big help. I think sometimes they feel a little bit like, oh, well, I'm with this person now. This is my training. I've got to stay with them because I haven't got a test, and now my license has run out, and now it's on hold, and now this, now that. And I think it's all just a bit crap in it. And they feel like they can't do anything about it. And it's not right, it's not fair. But being client-centered, like you've just said, what's going to work for you? How can we help you with this? If your trainer isn't speaking to you in that manner and doing what works for you, just look around. speak to someone else. There's loads of bloody options. There's some amazing, incredible people in our industry. If you're listening to this and you're thinking, I bloody hate role play and that's all we do, and just look around, just get in touch with people.
But also, there is this element of we have got to do a little bit of stuff. So I get people say, I absolutely detest reading. Well, you're going to have to do a little bit. You're probably going to have to role play a little bit. There's going to be a few pills to swallow, and I mean that metaphorically, that you're going to have to bite the bullet and go, right, I'm going to have to get through this little bit as well. Because you could say, I don't really like tests. Well, you've got 3 to do.
The responsibility is ultimately on the PDI for their training, for the effort and the input they put in. Of course it is. But with the right trainer for them, the one that vibes with them, the right support, it can be a lot easier than what a lot of people are dealing with at the moment and have dealt with in the past and will probably deal with in the future. It doesn't have to be as difficult as what it is. You don't have to feel like you're stuck. I mean, we're not talking about, if you're tied into a contract, that's that. But you can still
That's another story, isn't it?
Yeah, you can still speak to other people and you can still get outside influences and start to broaden the people that you listen to and where you can take that knowledge from, because that's you doing it yourself as well. So as much as you've got to look at all these people and find your trainer and interview them, that is on you to do that. It's it's a bit like, I don't know why I'm picking this when I'm going through a divorce, but it's a bit like picking your wedding dress, right? You don't buy the first one. You have to go through a few and then you go, right, that's the one.
Is it not true that you always go back to the first one, though?
I don't know. I picked the first one.
And there we go. Viewers and listeners, that's what happens if you enjoy bounties.
Yeah. Swiftly moving on. Next question.
Yeah. All right. So let's conclude then. I'm not actually sure if we answered Chris's question. I don't think there's certainly not a definitive answer, is there? I think we made it pretty clear.
There's so many different opinions and points of view and stuff. I think, how do you pick the right trainer? How do you pick your favorite chocolate? You only know it's your favorite chocolate when you try a few.
But that could be expensive.
Are you willing to try that, or are you going to go for the
That's
first
the question,
one?
isn't it? Yeah.
It's subjective and it's individual for each person's circumstance, isn't it?
Yeah. And my answer to that would be just go and talk to people. Talk to people in the industry, talk to people. If you see a driving instructor that's popping into a house on your street every week, if you can catch them before they do, or maybe at the end, or grab their phone number, give them a buzz and just say, look, that's what I'm interested in doing. If they're not a trainer, I bet they know one.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, get involved.
Get really curious about it in your local area as well. Like you've said, if you see one on your street, phone them. But then think, well, actually, there's probably a few more in my area. Let me get curious about it. Let me do a little search on Facebook or whatever. There is a lot of amazing, bloody good instructors who would be happy to meet you for a coffee, have a phone call, give you a bit of an insight.
Potentially, people watching or listening to this are probably already in the industry. So if you're an ADI and you're doing train the trainer stuff, or you're newly training somebody and you're thinking you might want to make a bit of a business out of this, what would be your advice to them?
My advice
to ensure that they
biased.
Well, what would you say to them so that they what would be your must include if somebody comes to have a meeting with them to consider them? What would you encourage them to do? Just very briefly.
I would encourage them before they even go to the meeting to find out what they're having the meeting for, to really, really know what they're going for the meeting for. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes I don't know. I go, ooh.
Just walk past and like, oh.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Fair enough. My advice would be is to show a genuine interest in that client. Dig deep.
The trainer or the instructor going to the trainer?
the trainer to acquire the business. Show
Yeah.
a genuine interest in that person and really understand why they're coming into the business, and if you are able to offer them and see it through.
Mm-hmm.
Ensure that you have a form of support network in place, because I think there's so many things to know, to uncover, problems you're going to come across, that you're not going to know it all to begin with. But
Of course not.
if you know what that trainee's carrot is, their motivator, you can keep them engaged, and it will also motivate you to push them to be the best you can be, and in turn the best they can be. So that would be my advice.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that completely.
Cool. Should we leave it there? That was really good.
Go for
An hour or just under an hour on Chris Spencer's questions. Really sorry if we didn't actually give any definitive answers, but I don't think there is one.
It's not our place to give a definitive answer. It's
Nah.
our place to have a cuppa and chat about it. And yeah, thank you for that question. I loved it.
It was great. Thank you very much, Chris. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We appreciate your support as always. And thanks for inspiring our chats by sending content in via our Facebook group and sending me and Becky private messages with video content as well. It's amazing. We appreciate it. But again, thanks for listening, and stay tuned for the next one.
Thanks so much. Bye, everyone.